Yes, let's call roll. And then we'll do it again at 7, I guess.
All right. Ms. Holt?
Here.
Ms. Yates?
Here.
Mr. Messon?
Here.
Chair McLaughlin?
Here.
And I'm Laura Turway.
Senior Representative Gardner staff.
Okay. So call to order. Where's that's not it. Well, we're here. And
Agenda.
I was looking for the agenda for our.
Should be on the.
I can't find it here. Yeah, but I was on the wrong one. Oh, there we go. Okay. It's an open house.
Yeah, we did we met with Diana Painter last month to talk about the survey. She had recommended a certain number of properties that had good integrity for potential landmark listing. I sent out letters to property owners listed, and I've talked to 2 people and talked to them a little bit about the process, and they have a tentative deadline of sometime next week, I think July 5th, if they want to move forward. And then Painter Preservation will utilize that grant money to do research on their homes, and we would then do listing of those properties as landmarks with owner consent in the fall. Right now, one of the property owners was somewhat interested, so I'm still pursuing that. If for some reason we don't get any, or just that one, we could choose to utilize the rest of the grant money to do research on city-owned properties, such as the promenade, the elevator, the Carnegie, as a first step to future National Register listing. As part of the National Register, there's Section 6 and 7, Section 7 and 8. One is just general history about the building, and the other is more of an architectural description. One thing we could do is we could work with the City Commission on choosing properties that we may one day want to list. And then what Painter Preservation can do is take a big chunk out of the work that is needed in the future for that, such as future research and, most importantly, the architectural descriptions. And that's what if we don't find out that we can utilize this money for local landmarks, and I would like to move forward with that. Painter Preservation is going to recommend a certain number of buildings that they think are eligible that the city, for National Register listing, that have not been listed, that the city owns. And I promise the ones I mentioned will probably be put forward. So if we, as a city, ever want to do a National Register listing, we will be 60% to 70% there.
Did you say that would be? When do that?
I think about a week. I think next week is the deadline for landmarks listing for the property owners that want to move forward. So then I would be working with Painter Preservation in July. So if there's not something now, but if there's a city-owned property that's not on the list that I mentioned that you think is should be looked at further for research for either local or national designation, do let me know in an email, and I can compile that list.
This is slightly off topic, but I guess I'm showing I'm technically challenged. I tried to get online and vote for the elevator.
Oh, okay.
I found it impossible to figure out how to vote. And I'm at it too. And I don't know if I'm just really even less capable than that. It's just really difficult to maneuver, and I don't know if other people are having that problem.
I do agree, but I wonder, because I'm already on the National Trust login, like it recognizes me. That like I went
through all the steps several times.
Yeah.
Huh? It didn't make 100, did it?
Well, it's not
to be voted on.
It's really voting to get the money for the
National
Trust.
The Willamette Falls locks, and that didn't.
The elevator did.
And when is the deadline?
That's a good question. I can find that out.
So I can try again.
I was able to do it, and I don't know if it's because my computer remembers my login, so when I go to the site, I'm automatically logged in. So it might have been easy that way.
No.
You'll get a text 2342 for. It's actually, if you go to the main city website, the deadline is on there, because we have a nice we have a nice info page on there.
Sorry for the digression, but.
Oh, that's okay. Our I'd like to move forward with painter preservation is we'll provide the list of the city properties that are eligible and they'll move forward with it. So if there's one that I didn't mention, please let me know and I'll forward that on. And we will probably have a official adoption of the survey and the form in the fall. I think with the end of this phase, and then because the scope of work was really a lot more than I think painter preservation intended, and the SHPO survey program's photo attachment was really complicated to attach each photo onto the survey form. You have to reformat it. I volunteered to do that. So I'm going to spend some part of the summer doing that.
Time out. They're aware of SHPO's procedures. So she should have built that into her bid, right?
That was after. I understand how difficult that was.
But did they know that prior to the bid?
No.
But has she done that before in other
No,
conversations?
no, and the problem with the way, and this is something I've taken on because the way, really one of the complications of the way SHPO has created their survey form, they really never intended 1,700 properties to be uploaded at once.
I mean, my next question is,
They're working on it to make it easier. So I'm trying to,
you're saying you're going to volunteer to do that. Is there a way to come up with additional monies for them to deal with it, like an add-on situation, or is it locked, done?
it's pretty much done.
Done.
Yeah. But it all kind of held fast and firm. We actually ended up adding another 100 properties from the original scope of work after a better understanding with GIS of some of the commercial properties that were initially left off of the initial scope because the tax assessor didn't identify them as a building date. So once we were able to really configure the actual construction date, we added suddenly 115 additional properties that were not on the original bid. So that was a little bit of a swap.
Was there tension there with all that, or?
No, I think it was an understanding that that's something that I can do this summer. So it'll just take till the end of summer for me to attach those. So, and SHPO is working on an easier uploading procedures and not having to reformat the JPEGs, because that's been the problem, is reformatting the JPEGs. For this fall, you'll be getting the full package, and it will have a formal adoption process. So it'll show that we are formally recognizing the survey and we're formally recognizing the document that Painter Preservation put together, and that doesn't really do anything other than, I mean, there's no regulatory authority from this, but it is nice to say that the City Historic Review Board has accepted and they formally acknowledged it.
What do you have to do to reformat the JPEGs?
I'll have to look. It's in my flow sheet from
Makes the
SHPO.
eyes and saves a different format?
I think so. And I probably did save all of them, but we can talk after the.
Okay.
It honestly has been put on the back burner for the last month
Okay.
for me.
So if you're wise, you'll delegate that to someone else and make sure it gets done.
Sure.
Maybe.
So that's all I have for the update on the survey program and the landmarks. Hopefully we can still try to work with people. There's always opportunity. We've had 2 landmarks approved for voluntary landmark designation to take advantage of the local preservation grant program. So there are some carrots out there, and maybe even outside this process, we can continue that education.
Well, it's a lot of work. Thank you.
So that's all I have for that agenda item. We have some good news on our next agenda item.
Yes.
which is the Ermitanger House. Just to get you up to speed, and Mr. Metzen, the Ermitanger House, the city applied to the Historic Preservation League of Oregon to be designated one of Oregon's 10 most endangered buildings, and that has actually been a very good move on the city. The city, myself, Scott Archer, Denise Ty, and Margin Roll Harding went to the banquet in May for the presentation and the show of support. And from that designation, the Historic Preservation League of Oregon has promised to use their strength in advocating and publicity, and also helping with strategic planning, as well as a small amount of seed money for each of the 10 buildings, not a lot, $1,000 or $2,000. And we just met actually with Peggy Moratti and Spencer Brandon Hartley with the Historic Preservation League of Oregon, as well as Paul Falsetto, who is a volunteer with them today, and went through the Ermitanger House and looked at long-range plans. And I think, the wheels are turning. The city, since the designation has occurred of a 10 most dangerous building, has started talking to other jurisdictions, City of Portland. They would like to talk to Clackamas County. They're continuing their discussions with the Feds and National Park Service on long-term acquisition of the Ermitanger House as a part of the McLaughlin site of the Fort Vancouver site. So this kind of has really spurred an action, and it's a good publicity and talking point, and it kind of raises the Ermitanger up in status. I think a lot of people either didn't know about the Ermitanger House or didn't know about its condition. So this listing has done two things. It's let the preservationists who love the house know about its condition. Just talking to the HPLO person, Bill Hawkins, who's one of Portland's eminent historic architects, didn't realize the condition of the Ermitanger House. So that's important. Our city manager, David Frazier, and Scott Archer went and spoke with Sam Adams' office last week, and they have given initial support for helping politically and some money, though that is definitely still an asterisk to be determined later, but they have indicated that they will help as much as they can politically. If there has to be any future congressional action for boundary expansion to get the Ermitanger in, or any other aspects. So that's exciting that we see the kind of history of Portland, which is part of the Ermitanger House, and then acknowledging that's a resource for the city of Portland as well. We'll be speaking with Clackamas County and just starting to look at what needs to be done to coalesce the 2002 master plan that was done by David Slesarenko, the current structural report that we just paid for and done this last month, to have an updated preservation plan. So when the city does go out looking for funds through grants or just political action for seeing the long-term survivability of this building, we'll have a nice package to show. These are the different phases. This is where we are in the phase process. This is how much money needs to be spent. This is how we want your money to be used. So that's what Historic Preservation League of Oregon may help the city try to come together to figure out what can we do to get that package together with the least amount of money and the most amount of impact. So that's what we met with them today, and so we're moving forward on that. So that's exciting. When I visited the site, they removed all the furniture that's now in storage. They've started to peel back some of the layers to see where the damage, and they've done some internal temporary structural support in the inside for some of the to hold up the second floor. The windows were had plywood over them. Those have been removed, and then a plexiglass window has been added in because we know it'll probably be a while before we get those windows back in, and so we wanted to make it look a little nicer than the plywood. So what you see now is just a plexiglass window. That's pretty much all I have right now, but things are definitely moving forward, and definitely a commitment, I think, from outside bodies, and I don't think we're going to be doing this alone, so that's exciting.
That's very good. A couple of questions.
Sure.
David Frazier spoke at the Chamber of Commerce Board yesterday, and he indicated, I think, $125,000.
Correct.
Is that in the budget for next
That is
year?
budgeted as of July 1.
Okay.
So what we need to figure out as a city, the city has now pledged $125,000 this next fiscal year, where that is fitting into the larger rehabilitation, because we're looking at a potential $750,000 project. So that will stay, and that's a good chunk to show for grants, but it's probably not the last city's going to be spending, but it's a good first chunk to move forward to the next steps.
And my other question is, David also mentioned that the reason these new expensive windows that are ready were not put in is because the foundation is unstable and the windows wouldn't fit anymore.
Right, correct. The building is twisting on itself, and so that was not the time to be putting in brand new rehab windows. And Amy McCauley from Oculus Fine Woodworking did the window rehab, and she is really one of the preeminent window restoration firms in the city, in this metro region, and we are blessed to have her work on the house. So I'm really excited that the work she did, but it's now kind of safely in storage until we can get it back, and we don't want to put it in until we've resolved the structural issues.
So without spending all the money that it's going to take to rehab the house, have they done sufficient, at least temporary sufficient stabilization so it doesn't twist on itself anymore?
I'm not a structural engineer, but from what I've heard, all the emergency stabilization has occurred. And they're still doing some discovery on the long-term issue, the bigger issues to solve, but the short-term emergency stabilization, they believe, is done.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay. I had a couple things. Has it been advertised for this vacant chair?
Yeah. It's been advertised. We have 2 respondents who are interested. We have till July 5th to respond. And actually, not July 5th, excuse me, the end of this month, June 30th. Previously, we've had the people interview with the Historic Review Board. That really was before the age of videotaping, and I really wouldn't recommend putting poor people through a videotape for the interview process. So one thing that the Planning Commission does that we may want to adopt is you get 2 people from the board and myself and Tony Conkle interview the applicant. That way it's not a quorum, but 2 people from the board are involved in the interview process. And then Tony Conkle is our community development director.
Oh.
And then that name is forwarded on to the mayor for appointment. And so that's something that the board could choose to do. I have the 2 applications. They're both Kenema residents, and they both look qualified. So I'm
I
excited.
just prefer to have the board deal with it just like they did with me or you. Because the board's the one that's got to deal with it, not the planning commission. and the council. You being inside, I'm sure you're fantastic. Great, but it was kind of like, hey, surprise, there's this guy. Wait a minute, how do we know?
Yeah.
Because it's the board that has to deal with them and fit them.
So if we did that, we would just not videotape. But that means we wouldn't be interviewing till
It's fine.
the July meeting, which means we'd have this person in the August meeting. So we just have 1 more month of 4.
So you're saying with that setup, would it just be me choosing 2 of us to do that? Or you choose 2 people from the board to do that? Or we could all do it?
That's those 2 out. Well,
What's the other option?
one option would be how the planning commission does it, which is the scope of your board chooses 2 people, and you can decide how you want to choose 2 people.
I like that one.
And then that interview can be done any time, and then the mayor can then appoint the recommended person at the middle July
Can we do that?
city commission meeting. Hold on.
Okay.
The second option would be how we more traditionally did it, which is have interviews at 6 o'clock at the July work session. We would just choose not to videotape it, but it would be open to the public.
That one.
Okay. And we just know that it would be, then we would appoint the person in probably the first August city commission meeting, and then they would be ready to go for the August work review board meeting.
Does anybody have a problem with that?
Okay.
We'd have to, is that good?
Yeah.
If they do
So we do it at 6 o'clock,
Next
work
month.
session, and then we just would not be videotaping the work session, or up until, what we may do is we may, if we have a work session, maybe we convene and then keep the meeting open, but end the, video taping and the streaming video, and you can interview after, so, it's 6:30 or something like
Be the
that.
first Tuesday one next month?
It'll be my normal meeting, the fourth Tuesday, and then I combined again.
Oh, that's right.
So, it'll be the July
I'm
meeting.
not here, well, I don't know if I'm here the 26th or not.
I probably won't be here on the 26th.
So it might be worth it to have
Or,
it's like that's an option, it's not a quorum, which means we can interview whenever we
or
want.
you have a work session on the 12th and
Can you have a special one?
skip the work session on the 26th. You could do that.
A bit earlier.
We could do that.
But tell us how you feel about that.
I like one of the first two options. It would just be complicated, and I know there's,
I don't know if I am or not. I won't know really till in a couple weeks. But if there's enough of us, the thing is, if we go with that route and say 2 of us are gone, that's not a quorum.
No,
right,
So
I think we should all be here. For
that might be at the expense of waiting another month.
it doesn't matter. We all have to work with this person.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And there's 4 of us for
We
now.
all need to be satisfied.
I do need to make sure, I don't have any, actually, I don't have any, short, hearings for next month, so
Oh yeah.
which is odd for July, but
So then,
But I'm saying if one of these 2 tonight is continued, that's one thing to think about.
I don't know. We can talk about that. So that was my only question. Was that?
So I'm hearing that you all 4 want to be involved in the interview process, which makes it a noticed hearing, which is fine. Generally, don't want to be interviewing, so we need to put it in the agenda to a point where I would recommend it just be the last of the work session agenda. So we just
Like at 6:30 or something.
on the agenda you see the last one, which would be interviews, and at that point we just turn the
Sure.
and I'll do the tier is listening.
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay.
So then my next question would be, if there's nothing for the 26th, then putting the date on a different time would be difficult.
That's not difficult. We could do it. If we want a quorum of 4 people and there is no hearings that month in July, it can be moved. I mean,
Yeah, I could do.
we'll move it to the second Tuesday because we know that we have this
Yeah.
space open.
If that's how it is, that's what I would do. I would probably have a better chance of having all of us here. Probably.
Yeah, I'll be here.
It works.
Well, let's do that. Well, I know right now I have not had anything turned in, so my notice requirement for next month is about today.
Oh.
So no one's turned anything in. Unless something is conditioned, then if it's moved, it could be moved to a date certain of the 12th as well.
Sure.
So, sounding like I can send out invitations for interview for the July 12th at 6 o'clock.
As far as I know, unless I'm
Okay.
gonna get in trouble for not knowing what's going on. I think.
Now, when's the second city commission meeting of July? Do you have a? It still might be appointed in August, just knowing that you may not make the second city commission.
Yeah, they have to go through.
I'm gonna have to Google a calendar. I don't have permission. Oh, I have. Hold on. I can get probably now. I'm almost positive we're gonna meet. So the person will be appointed for the August meeting. Probably at the first
But-
August city commission meeting.
Would you have anything else for that work session? Could it just be that?
Well,
Oh, you would?
we can choose whatever work session items. We've had a list of things we want to talk about. One thing I'd like to maybe bring up for next month is beginning the discussions of the design guidelines. That's something you want to start. Well, that's a discussion of infill and new construction related to more modern architecture and materials. Where do you want to wait for the new person to start? That's one discussion.
Is it gonna be in accordance with the master plan that's been put forth by the city, or are we gonna revisit
We've been
that?
able to look at revising our design guidelines for new construction, which were adopted in 2006, which,
Right.
and based on our, I mean, I was a big proponent of Ken's, and I know Vicki wanted to potentially take a look at it, and, I think it would be worth it for, the stroke review board to at least revisit it, identify some of the issues that were brought up as part of the Atkinson approval, and see if, how the board views the design guidelines differently after that process. And it may be the result is gone through the revision and no recommendation of no changes, recommendations of small changes, or recommendations of a, new process. So I mean, it could vary through, many different answers based on, the work session.
Okay. Anybody think of anything else?
No.
I know for Derek, and this may be something we want to wait for September, I know we'd like to bring Carrie Richter in, our city attorney, to talk a little bit about just general land use law and process and kind of strict preservation law, but I'd like to do that in the fall once we get the full board back.
She doesn't let us do anything.
So,
She comes and then, Okay. Is that it?
that's all I have.
So I can adjourn this meeting and close it.